So we're having the rain talks today instead of the lightning talks for the people who couldn't make it in so far. And we're going to talk first about mobility, what we've been doing at Masdar, but what's been going on globally in terms of mobility in the 15 years that I've been at Masdar City, because there have been significant changes and there need to be significant changes. And first off, why, a little bit of setting the stage, why does mobility matter? It matters for two reasons. First is that globally, about 21% of roughly 20% of carbon output is from transportation. In advanced economies like the US and Europe, it's about almost 30%. Total carbon output is coming from surface transportation. And in California, my home state, and everyone been to California? Yay. Okay, if you haven't been to California, I highly recommend you visit it. There, I've done my piece for California. But it's over 40% of all carbon output is from surface transportation. Now, if you go to California, you will realize that it looks a lot like Abu Dhabi in terms of transportation. There's lots of big freeways. There's lots of big cars. So if we had to look at the UAE, I would say we're also up here on the higher end of what's coming from surface transportation because of the way we commute. And it's a lot like what happens in California. But also, no one really enjoys this. Right? This is not fun. This is Los Angeles. It's actually even worse than the UAE unless we cloud seed, and then the UAE gets a bit worse. But no one enjoys this. As much as people say I enjoy driving, no one enjoys this. So we at Masdar City believe the future of transportation is sustainable. And for that to be sustainable, it needs to be three things. It needs to be electric, autonomous, and shared. So, and while we've been on the precipice of this for several years, each year that I've been at Masdar City, the hockey stick is moved back a little further in terms of when do EVs really take over. Well, finally, in the last couple of years, the hockey stick is starting to rise. So we're really starting to see delayed, but coming in, the implementation of electric transportation. And this is just a few stats on it. Volvo's setting an all-time high. Volkswagen is as well. We're finally seeing this takeoff. You're looking at places like China where almost 30% of the vehicles are now electric. It's no longer just Norway and Denmark and Sweden. It's taking over mass production. So you're seeing the thousands of the EVs per year, and it's actually taking off now. So we're looking at this is a shared mobility thing, and right now primarily it's hailed. So Uber, Careem, Lyft, Bolt. Globally, this is places where, and right now this is still with the driver, but we're looking at 500 million. And this is why the autonomous companies, this is why companies like Waymo and Cruise have put so much money into this, is because they can take that. And once you can take the driver out of the vehicle, you can also significantly increase safety. The one slide that we don't have on here, I don't think yet, and we probably need to add, is 1.3 million people are killed each year in car accidents. That is, I think, as a globe, way too much. That's way too many people that are dying in car accidents, and we need to. And autonomous has a hope of significantly reducing that, but there are barriers in each one of these, and economics, regulations, and technology. So an internal combustion engine is very cheap. You can buy a entry-level vehicle in the UAE for about $15,000. We've actually reduced the price. What you can't see here, because it's hidden by the chair, is this happens when you do TED Talks, is about $30,000 for the equivalent electric vehicle. A few years ago, when I had this slide a few years ago, it was $45,000. So we've actually reduced that. But an autonomous vehicle is entry-level price is about $250,000 for a level 3 vehicle. And the most capable vehicles are not actually for sale because that's not the business model yet. So I like this statistic, $16 billion so far on autonomous vehicles. And where are we? And I think the answer, I'd say, is still not far enough. You can see what happened. And this is, you have to appreciate this, what they've actually done by testing in San Francisco. It's not an easy place to drive. But Cruise was suspended, Waymo's still going on, but with lots of difficulties integrating into an urban environment. And that's why some of the approaches we've taken at Masdar City are a bit different. We're going to have battery issues. There's only so much lithium ion. There's mining regulations in a lot of countries. And so we're going to need to be able to find the batteries and the materials to source this to fit the needs for all of our electric vehicles. But as you see, in a lot of ways, the UAE, like in a lot of technologies, is a place where we can actually make strides forward, where we can lead the world, where if we have the leadership and we've set some standards and set some goals, we can actually do it. We are and I'd say at Masdar City, we're a great test size. I call us semi-open. We fall into DMT regulations, but we are a place where people can come and do testing and showcase what they're doing in a place that's not quite as wide open as Sheikh Zayed Road. So you've seen the testing that's already going on in Abu Dhabi. It supplements what's going on in Masdar City. But before we get into technology, I would say that Masdar City, our transportation philosophy is inverted. So almost everywhere in the UAE especially, but globally, the first thing you look at is cars. How do we get people in individual vehicles from one place to another? And the last part is walking. Where at Masdar City, we say, okay, how do we enable you to walk or cycle or take public transportation or take an e-scooter before we have you in your individual vehicle? Because we believe that every trip you don't have to take is more sustainable than when you take an electric vehicle. We started this transportation philosophy 15 years ago. And so I think when a lot of you come out to Masdar City, and has everyone visited Masdar City? Hands all over. So for anyone who hasn't visited Masdar City, it's fine to hear me talk about it. It's a lot more interesting to actually come see it and try it yourself. Riding this is one of the highlights for everyone in their visit. Any English people in the crowd? People in the UK here? Nobody? Good. We can talk about them. Because Boris Johnson was out here yesterday talking about green hydrogen. But one of the things he mentioned was that 10 years ago, he came to Masdar City. And what do you think he talked about Masdar City? Was it our buildings? Was it our sustainability? Was it our renewable energy? Unfortunately, he didn't talk about any of that. What he did talk about was our transportation system. And he said, I came to Masdar City and I rode the self-driving car. And that was 10 years ago. And he was there once. And that's what he remembered. And that's what he talked about, because it was a groundbreaking technology at the time, especially. And it was so, the title for the day is Future Forward. And that's what it was. But it's not our only transportation solution. We've also used Navia. We developed an eco bus specifically designed to be able to operate in this climate. Our campus-like environment is really set for micromobility. And then we also have a series of electric vehicles running across Masdar City. This was the first phase, as I mentioned. Phase 2, autonomous vehicles, this able to operate outside, able to integrate with pedestrians, with scooters, with other vehicles. But starting with an integrated downtown development that really focuses on walkability. So what's next? We were very happy to announce last November the introduction of SAVI, the Smart Autonomous Vehicles Industry cluster that is coming to Masdar City. It's actually now established at Masdar City. It's in cooperation with ADIO, the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, because Abu Dhabi has said this is one of the sectors that we think we can make a real difference in going forward. And when we want to headquarter this, when we want to do the testing, when we want to bring the companies in, we want to do R&D, we want to do it at Masdar City. So I think Amy, I think that's my last slide. I think that's it. So I'm happy to hand it over to Aline now. Michelle's here to introduce Aline. Excellent.
Meet Aline, everybody. But firstly, I would just like to say we are not ignoring you, our friends from the UK, who are always listening in on our sessions. Thank you so much. So Aline is a esteemed colleague, but also runs an Agri-tech startup called HydroArtPod. And the floor is yours, Aline.
Good morning, everyone. Very nice seeing you here. Following on what Steven said is Michelle introduced me already. I'm wearing two hats. One of being a senior development manager in Masdar City, but also being an entrepreneur. And that really comes into play when we talk about climate tech and innovation, because what we believe is that there is a better way of doing things with things we already have. So we have a lot of resources like our homes, which are already air conditioned and which have empty space. And why not use those existing resources in order to help food production into the new age? What does that mean? At the moment, when we look at how much food is lost, is almost 1/3 of all food produced around the world is actually lost. That's a huge amount. And it costs every household a lot of money every year. You don't see it directly, but indirectly, you have things in your fridge, you have things you haven't eaten, things don't even make it into the supermarkets because they're lost during transport. So it's a huge environmental burden and monetary burden to all of us. So let's look at what we're doing at the moment, right? There are a couple of ways how to go about food production at the moment. We have one, which is your conventional farming. You have a farmer, he harvests, he storage, he needs to pack, he needs to ship things. Then it goes somewhere in a shopping mall or on a store, and only a few days after you actually get to buy it. And you probably stored another 2 to 3 days in a fridge. That's suboptimal because you're losing not only a lot of nutrients, but the things are not fresh. You're creating carbon through transportation. We have food packaging, and you lose nutrients. And most of all, most of these plants are treated. You don't have any control, and a lot of people really lost trust in the food. Now, what happened next was that people came up with vertical farming at a better way of creating much more food in a much more dense environment. What that in our mind still falls short is that it is still located usually outside of cities. It's not decentralized. It still needs to be harvested and packaged. You still have the packaging. You still need to ship it from the centralized version where it's being located. It's still being in a store and still means you're having all the different issues you have as of traditional food production. Now, we believe there's a better way, and you can enable people to actually grow at home. And one of the solutions is a home farming kit, essentially giving people an alternative means to grow locally. What does that mean? You avoid chemicals because your plants at home are not sprayed, which means, again, you have less of that on your plants, better for your health. You don't lose nutrients. You only harvest what you really need at the moment you need. You haven't got any food waste, right? Nothing in the fridge, like a sad-looking salad. You just don't have any of that. You haven't got packaging because there is no packaging needed, right? It grows on your wall. So there's no shipping, transportation, packaging, and it's absolutely fresh, right? So it has a lot of benefits doing it decentralized at home. It doesn't use any energy either because your home is probably at the right climate condition already anyway. So what does it mean? We need to enable people to grow locally. And for me, it's like the revolution have you seen in fridges, right? Many years ago, there weren't any fridges, and people didn't know that they needed fridges because in their mind, there were other means they would get things fresh. There wasn't any requirement up until people realized how helpful a fridge could be. And in my mind, decentralizing growing of food in an environment which is already there is bringing us a new evolution of when people got fridges and freezers, helping people to produce a lot of foods very locally. And how do we do that? We need to make it really convenient for people, like the fridge, right? You open the door, it regenerates the temperature, you haven't to do anything. So you need to give people a device and a software that manages everything for them, because no one knows how to grow, and people don't want to know how to grow. People want to harvest, they want to enjoy. And they want to do that with a little effort because everyone is busy. No one has time to have a garden, and a lot of people don't have space. And people do want to grow 365 days of the year, right? They want to eat all year long. The way you can do it is in your home. And again, enabling it through hardware, software that's managing it, and anything else that could go wrong pre-dosed. So people don't have to measure nutrients or anything else, right? Make it just really easy. what benefits does it have? So essentially, you can have a new healthy lifestyle, right? You have something which fits right in your day without you needing to take any effort. And you can grow 5 a day within one unit within your home. And not only that, but you have a full guide. You can enable people actually take care of the nutrients and the benefits for their health. Because you have full control of what you're growing. You know exactly what you have harvested, what you have eaten, and you get personalized idea about recipes based on yourself, with the support of inputs and the future of AI. And that's a short summary of me and the revolution of indoor farming decentralized in your home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aline. Steve, welcome you back to the stage. Now it's question time. For those of you who were here yesterday, you will know that question time works both ways. You can ask questions, but I'm also going to ask you questions. But I won't do it on the mic, I promise. So, my first question. So I have a question for Steve. Could you tell us...
Only easy questions from you, Michelle. Only easy questions.
Just...
Yes.
In terms of technology, if you could summarize what's been the real journey for Masdar City? What's the tech that we have achieved and we're going to achieve in the future, in your opinion?
Honestly, I would say it's the integration more than one piece of technology. I would say it's not a single piece of technology. Almost every piece of technology we have at Masdar City, you can find somewhere. You can find, electric vehicles other places now. You can find autonomous vehicles other places now. You couldn't find them when we started them. You can find people doing a sustainable building. You can find people, doing a command and control center, doing some vertical farming. You can find some of these things now. I think the first time we put a lot of them in, you couldn't find them anywhere else within a reasonable distance. But what you can't find is what you can't find is all of it. You can't find a place that says, oh, we use both traditional master planning technologies to make things walkable, and then we have electric transportation, and then we pioneer autonomous transportation, and then we do R&D in AI around that type of transportation. You can't find that philosophy together, that truly integrated and holistic approach. Any individual piece, you can find other walkable cities. We're not the only people talking about walkability. We're not the only people talking about R&D, but we're the only people talking about it together. And I think that's what makes Masdar City truly unique.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mohammed has a question. Excellent.
So I live in Masdar City at the moment, and there are few systems.
And you take people around Masdar City, I know.
Yeah,
like Masdar City. So I'm a little worried about what's coming now. Someone who's intimately acquainted with Masdar City and has questions, but ask. This is great.
No. There are few sustainable cities / developments around the UAE, but I think Masdar City has something unique about it. I don't know. Is it the looks of the buildings? Is it how everything is kind of connected together and so on? And then the little things yet you never know about until you just need it. How can we duplicate? First of all, do you as Masdar City, do you see this city duplicating in other places, and how we can do that? How can we make every city a Masdar City?
and I think we've called her sometimes the green print for the city. And I think what I mentioned earlier is like the whole integration. Other cities will come and say, what can we learn from? I'm going to take that piece. I'm going to take that piece. I'm going to take that piece. So when we started, we broke ground about 16 years ago now. And you could do major developments in anywhere, flagship projects, without talking about sustainability. Now, every flagship project in the GCC, not just in the UAE, but needs to talk about sustainability. Every flagship project in Saudi, every Qatar for the World Cup, Dubai Expo talked about their sustainability, and this is becoming more widespread. I think with the next stage, and you mentioned other sustainable projects, look, there are other sustainable developers. We think that's fantastic. If we were the only ones, I think we would have failed, because they would have looked at us and said, oh, that's impossible. We can't do that. And what we just want to say is, it was difficult, but we've paved the way. Come join us. And I think the next stage is not just flagship projects, but everyone doing a 15-story residential tower, or 100 villas somewhere. Will say, look, sustainability is a better way to do this project, and that will come both from them learning about A, how it's economic, but B, the culture changing, and the culture becoming more requiring of sustainable development techniques. And we're moving in that direction, and we've got it at the very highest level of projects, but we've not brought it across all of them yet.
Thank you. I will now divert. Actually, I just want to also add that I think, in my personal opinion, it's also about long-term strategy, because everything that Steve has said, we have a very unique ecosystem of government, academia, business working together. And that's a long-term strategy. It takes time to build partnerships, and, it's not a quick fix, as you said. Aline, I have a question for you. Firstly, a question for all of you. Did anybody in COVID start sourdough baking? No. Okay. Very hard, very technical. So my question to you is, if we are starting to think about a home farm solution or growing our own produce at home, where do we start? Because it's sometimes difficult to just make that first move, Aline.
I think in my mind, we really have to get away from thinking that as being an exotic thing, right? At the moment, a lot of people think growing at home, they see a little pot of basil on the kitchen counter, and they think that's what means growing at home. And doing anything more is involving a lot of work and effort and knowledge. And I think we need to get away from that way of thinking, because there are a lot of different devices out there, like the one I have invented, which take care of that, just as a fridge does for you, right? So it's a device where you can just buy it, plug it in, and it works by itself. And that's what people want, right? People don't want the hassle. People can't be bothered to go through the process of growing. They don't want to put things on their windowsill to get it germinated and then eventually kind of transplant it to get it growing. What people want is a lettuce ready in 30 days to eat it and to harvest it. That's what they want. And I think it's very important that in order to help food security and help with food packaging and the carbon through transportation, to reduce all that, to promote these new ways of growing food at home. Because let's not forget, a vertical farm, even a hydroponic one outside the city, still takes a lot of energy. It needs to have the perfect climate condition. Now you wonder, well, my home doesn't have a perfect climate condition either. That is true. But the climate condition in everyone's home is good enough and within a range that all the plants can grow. You probably have your home at between 18 and 23 degrees, right? Depending on what you enjoy. The plants grow perfectly in there. You get the highest yield? Maybe if you have the perfect temperature and everything perfectly calibrated, like a commercial farm, you might get a higher yield. But for your own personal use, you don't really care whether you have one cherry tomato more or one pepper more on your bush or not. So you have much more flexibility in terms of what you grow at home than what commercial growers have to work with. And you haven't got the energy cost, right? Because, for example, the system we're using, the energy costs are set to a little aquarium. There's hardly any cost on the LED grow lights which are on there. and the pump doesn't work all the time, just sporadically. So energy costs to operating a system like that are minimal. And you haven't got the cost for cooling or heating, right? Because you're doing that in your home already anyway. So making that transition and just throw overboard and saying growing is something difficult, to say, hey, growing can be just like buying a fridge or microwave, a staple of your home. That's where we need to get to. And that is possible with a new innovation we have shown that helps us bringing forward new ideas to combat the effects of climate change.
Aline, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Because what you were talking about, I can get lettuce in 30 days,
correct.
which sounds fantastic. Because how long will the lettuce last? From 30 days to, because I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I feel like at the beginning of the week, I'm going to eat healthy. So I go to the store and I buy my packet of lettuce, and it's in a plastic container, and then it's wrapped in a plastic container, and then it gets put in a plastic bag. I often take my backpack in, so I save one level layer of plastic. But then I make a salad the first night, and then it turns out I get pizza the second night, and so the salad, the rest of the lettuce goes to waste. If I could take just the perfect amount off the farm in my house, I think I'd waste a lot less food too this way, wouldn't I?
Absolutely, because see, after 30 days or up to the lead of 30 days, these plants mature. It doesn't mean you have to wait 30 days. You can still eat some of the leaves. If you have big family, you can harvest entire lettuce as you would when you buy one in a supermarket, right? If you decide on the second day you have a pizza, you just don't harvest. This thing is continue growing for a certain period, and depending on the variety of plant, you can harvest up to 2-3 weeks, right? So you even can go on vacation. And that's the next
See,
thing.
I think I could have 2 salads in 2 or 3 weeks, but 2 salads in 2 days, it's felt like a lot to me at times. Like the pizza keeps calling on day number 2.
And you're raising a really important point, right? A lot of people looked into smaller versions. And the problem with smaller version is it's more like a garnish. But what you need to do is you need to get a certain scale. So in my mind, what I've invented is I wanted to make it a full-fledged system, right? I've invented 30 plants in that system. Why 30? Because your average month has 30 days, and it takes 30 days to mature a lettuce. So if I wanted to, and I were only to plant lettuce, I could plant 30 lettuce, and every time I take one out, I plant a new one. By the time I'm eating my way through my 30 days, 1 lettuce a day, if I were to eat a lettuce every day, then by the time
I bet you're at the gym every day too, aren't you? I mean, I'll bet she's at the gym every morning and having a salad every evening. Aline, you're an inspiration to us all. But I can't live this way, Aline.
But you know what it also means is whatever grows in there, like your tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, beans, this thing can grow everything, by the way, right? Which is important because you might not want to eat lettuce all day. You want to have tomatoes, peppers, things like that. You want to have a colorful lettuce, right? You're 5 a day. And what it helps you as well, think about lunchtime. If you just replace your lunch with what's growing on that day on the unit, you're going to lose weight for sure. Not that you need it, but you could.
I need it. And it's not that I need it, it's that I do need it.
So we're coming up to the end. So actually I have one sort of thought or question for both of you. So in terms of all the things you're talking about, scaling up, community, the ecosystem, tell us or help us understand a little bit more about Masdar City's plans to make these kinds of concepts more communal.
Look, I think that's one thing that sometimes we overlook when we talk about technology and we talk about our buildings, like on our master plan. And I'm going to get into Lucas's realm here, and I think he's standing somewhere back here. But when you talk about the 15-minute city and the walkability, it is the community that. I'm going to ask you guys a question here. How many of you live in the UAE? How many of you have rented and bought a house or an apartment? Like you live indoors in the UAE, right? I mean, so you live indoors. How many of you, when you went to your agent, you said, what's the lead rating on the building that you're showing me? You know, what's my electricity consumption? If I live in this apartment or this house, what will my electricity consumption be? That's right. No hands up. No hands up. Even the guy living in Masdar City didn't even ask that. He's just like, I want to live in Masdar City. But all of you asked, what's the community like? What's around me? What can I walk to? What can I do? That's so there is a great benefit to sustainability that people instantly recognize. And I'll talk just a second about Dubai, because Dubai put in the metro, and every time I talk to Abu Dhabi, I'm like, please bring the metro to Masdar City. It's planned. We need it. It's great. But the value of real estate around every metro station did exactly what it did everywhere in the world, and it shot up. It shot up around there because people want better commuting opportunities. People want good public transportation. They don't want bad public transportation, but they want good public transportation. People want amenities. People want walkable cities, and that people realize that instinctively that their life is better when they have that community. I think it's amazing to be able to go to coffee shops where you walk in and they, I go back to Cheers, where everybody knows your name. I love going down to Skinny Joe. It's not really skinny, but it makes me feel better about going there. And just walking into the coffee shop at Masdar City and just saying hi to the guys, because I know them all. They know me. And I think that community is really something that's, as we spend more and more, okay, now I'm going to get philosophical and sound old, but as you spend more time on your phone and less time with real people, this is not good for us. The more time you can spend in your neighborhood, in your community, knowing the people that are around you, knowing who's serving your food, knowing who's standing there at the grocery store, to me that is a true enhancement to your quality of life. And it's the one thing that people have proven globally, that they will pay for this, and they want that. And so it's really one of the aspects we're trying to bring to Masdar City. Was that the question you were asking? Was that, or did I just get philosophical on you, Michelle?
I that I love when people get philosophical, so that's fine. Aline, do you have any thoughts about how you might bring those sorts of systems out of individual homes, say, into the community? Maybe we can share farms and share resources. Is that something you think is possible?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, the system we have developed is twofold, right? Hydroponic growing is no rocket science. A lot of people have done it. I think what a lot of people struggle with is, how do you grow different crops within the same system? Because usually the plants have different needs, right? Some need more light, some less. Some need certain nutrients, other plants other ones. And trying to kind of get that going together and automate that, because from everyone who understands anything about agriculture and hydroponics, you know how difficult it is to fine-tune the right balance. And once you have done that, and once you have developed the software and it works, you can scale it, right? I'm not suggesting to go into commercial farming, because again, that's already done. But I certainly think that the system we have, you can scale up into a community farm in order to convert a lot of public spaces into community gardening. Because a lot of us, or many of us, may have lived in smaller villages in their past or in their childhood. And I'm not sure about you, but for us, gardening outside was always a big thing. It was nice. And as a kid, I really enjoyed that too. Now I'm living in a city, I can't really do it anymore. And the climate wouldn't allow me to do that 24 hours. But what if you would have a container-like system where you can go in, where you have an access card, so you pay a monthly subscription, you can walk in, you have the walls full of plants, and you can just harvest what you want. And it's right at your doorstep. You don't have to drive anymore. It is somewhere on a walkway, in a little park, in your community, directly around the house. You can even send the kids. And you harvest them, only pay for what you actually take. You have the community feel, you're sharing it only with a few people, and you cut out the packaging, the waste, the carbon, everything, which is currently bothering us, right? And on top of that, and a lot of people don't realize that, any food you buy will take time to get to your fridge. And spinach, for example, is losing almost 90% of its vitamins within the first 24 hours from harvest. Now, it's almost certain that...
So I shouldn't feel bad about throwing out the spinach on the second day? I whatever I don't eat is worthless to me anyway. I might as well just throw it out.
But Stephen, that's a point. You just said earlier, right? You have your lettuce packed in plastic in order to keep it fresh. But the real problem is, we all taught as kids, it's green, it's fresh, it's healthy for you, right? Status quo. That's how we're raised. Matter of fact, so just because it looks fresh doesn't mean it still has the vitamins and the nutrients you actually need. So you're eating it thinking, I can feel good now because, it doesn't have calories and I'm doing something good in terms of vitamins. It's true, it doesn't have calories, But in terms of vitamins, depending what type of crop you're consuming, you might as well eat paper, right? So, but we don't know. We're not taught this fact about fresh produce. Hence, growing locally where you only harvest what you need when you need it, that just in time, is such a big driver. And I think once people realize, they only would want to have a system like that, especially if it's easy at home, like your fridge, right? It's not a hassle. It's just a staple of your home.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Steve, Aline, and thank you, the audience, for your participation. Give yourself a clap.